I've always prided myself on being a strong man. At 58 years old, I own a small automotive repair shop in suburban Michigan that I built from nothing 40 years ago. My hands are calloused from years of honest work. My back still straight, despite decades of leaning over engine blocks. When I collapsed in my shop last Tuesday morning, clutching my chest as pain radiated down my left arm, I thought I was invincible enough to just walk it off. My assistant manager Tom took one look at my gray face and called 911 anyway. 3 days in the hospital, 3 days of tests, monitors, worried doctors telling me about warning signs and lifestyle changes, and you're lucky it wasn't the big one. 3 days of my wife Linda sitting by my bedside, her hand in mine, her blue eyes filled with concern, but also that practical determination I've loved for 35 years. She's an accountant, my Linda. She doesn't panic, she makes plans. We're going to get through this, she kept saying. The shop can run without you for a week. Tom's got it covered. You just focus on getting better. I was released on Friday afternoon with a bag full of prescriptions, a stack of dietary guidelines, and strict orders to rest for at least 2 weeks. Linda drove me home in our old Silverado, the same truck we've had for 12 years. I stared out the window at the familiar streets of our neighborhood, feeling oddly disconnected. The heart attack warning had shaken something loose in me. Mortality isn't some abstract concept when you're lying in a hospital bed at 58 wondering if you'll ever see 60. Jessica's been calling every day, Linda mentioned as we pulled into our driveway. Our daughter, 32 years old, married to Marcus for 5 years now. She wants to come over this weekend to help out. That's nice of her, I said, though something in Linda's tone made me look at her more closely. There was tension around her mouth, a tightness I'd learned to recognize over 3 decades of marriage. Robert, there's something I need to tell you before we go inside, she said quietly, putting the truck in park but not turning off the engine. Her hands gripped the steering wheel. While you were in the hospital, Jessica and Marcus came by the house every day. At first I thought they were just being supportive, but then yesterday, she trailed off, and I saw tears beginning to form in her eyes. Linda almost never cries. What happened? I asked, my chest tightening with a different kind of pain now. They want me to sign some papers. They say we need to get our affairs in order, that with your health scare we need to be realistic about the future of the shop. They brought documents, Robert. Legal documents. They want power of attorney. They want to put the business in Jessica's name to protect it. And when I refused to sign anything without talking to you first, Marcus got angry. He said I was being difficult, and that I clearly couldn't handle the stress of taking care of you and managing the business. I felt ice water in my veins. Where are these documents now? I hid them in my desk drawer. I told them I needed time to think about it. But Robert, she turned to face me, and I saw something in her expression that scared me more than any heart attack warning. I think they've already done something. I tried to log into the business bank account yesterday to pay the utilities, and my password didn't work. When I called the bank, they said the account access had been changed by the new authorized party 2 days ago. What? I reached for the door handle, but Linda grabbed my arm. Wait, there's more. I think they're inside right now. Jessica's car is parked around the corner. I saw it when we turned onto our street. I looked at our house. It looked the same as it had for the past 20 years. The same red brick, the same white trim, the same flower beds Linda had planted. But now it felt different, violated. Why would she park around the corner? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Because she doesn't want us to know she's here. I took a deep breath, ignoring the ache in my chest that might have been my heart or might have been rage. Let's go see what our daughter is up to. We walked up the driveway together, Linda's hand in mine. I could feel her trembling slightly, but when I looked at her face, I saw determination there. My wife isn't a fighter by nature, but she's not a doormat either. We've built a life together, raised a daughter, survived recessions and slow seasons, and my stubborn refusal to modernize the shop's bookkeeping until she finally dragged us into the computer age 15 years ago. I unlocked the front door, and we stepped inside. The first thing I heard was laughter from the kitchen. Not happy laughter, but the kind of triumphant, excited laughter you hear when someone thinks they've won something. Male voices, too. More than one. The second thing I noticed was that the house was too quiet otherwise. No TV in the living room, no radio in the kitchen like Linda usually kept on. Just those voices from the back of the house. Linda's hand tightened on mine. I squeezed back, and we moved quietly down the hallway toward the kitchen. Sign anything until Dad gets home, but she's going to be a problem, Jessica's voice carried clearly. She actually hid the POA documents like we wouldn't notice. Your mom's always been difficult, Marcus replied. I'd never liked my son-in-law's voice. Too smooth, too practiced. He worked in sales, luxury cars, and he had that particular tone that made everything sound like he was doing you a favor. That's why we need to move fast. Once your dad's home, he's going to ask questions. He just had a heart attack, Marcus. He's not going to be thinking clearly. The doctors said it was stress-related. We can use that. We can show that the business is too much for him, that he needs to step back for his health. A woman's voice I didn't recognize chimed in. And once you have control of the business, you can start making real money off that property. That lot is worth 10 times what the shop brings in. My cousin's a developer, and he's been looking for locations in that area for a new strip mall. Your dad's been sitting on a gold mine for 40 years and didn't even realize it, Marcus said, and I could hear the grin in his voice. Once we get the business signed over, we sell the property, split the money, and set your parents up in a nice assisted living facility. Everybody wins. But what about Mom? Jessica asked. And for a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe my daughter still had a conscience. She's not going to just go along with this. We'll handle your mom, the unknown woman said dismissively. She's already isolated. We made sure of that while your dad was in the hospital. Changed her passwords, blocked her from the business accounts, took her phone yesterday and accidentally factory reset it. By the time she figures out how to contact anyone, this will all be done. I felt Linda stiffen beside me, and I understood. They'd been systematically cutting her off, making her helpless. Marcus laughed. And I filed the emergency power of attorney documents yesterday afternoon, citing your dad's medical incapacity. It's a gray area legally, but by the time anyone challenges it, we'll have sold the property. Your parents will thank us eventually, when they're living somewhere with round-the-clock care. I still feel weird about this, Jessica said, but her voice lacked conviction. Jess, babe, your parents are getting old. Your dad just had a heart attack at 58. How much longer do you think he can keep running that shop? We're helping them. And yeah, we're helping ourselves too, but that's not a crime. This is smart estate planning. Marcus is right, the unknown woman added. And think about it, Jessica. You're their only child. This was going to be yours eventually anyway. We're just accelerating the timeline. I'd heard enough. Linda had heard enough. I felt her pull her hand from mine and saw her straighten her spine, that practical accountant determination settling over her features. Actually, I said loudly, stepping into the kitchen doorway with Linda beside me, I think we need to have a family meeting. The scene in the kitchen would have been almost comical if it weren't so enraging. Jessica and Marcus were seated at our kitchen table, with a woman I'd never seen before, probably in her mid-30s, wearing a business suit. Spread across the table were papers, documents, manila folders, my kitchen table, where we'd eaten thousands of meals, where Jessica had done her homework, where Linda and I had planned our lives, was being used as a war room to steal everything we'd built. Jessica's face went pale. Marcus's jaw dropped. The strange woman started gathering papers quickly, professionally. Dad! Jessica stood up so fast her chair scraped across the floor. You're home. You should be resting. What are you doing up? I'm standing in my own kitchen, I said evenly, walking forward. Linda moved with me, a united front. The question is, what are you doing in my house? And who is this? I nodded toward the stranger. This is Diane, Marcus said, recovering quickly. Too quickly. She's an estate attorney. We asked her to come help with some paperwork for you and Linda. You know, after your health scare, we thought it would be good to get your affairs in order. How thoughtful, I said. Except nobody asked me if I wanted to get my affairs in order. And Linda, did you invite these people into our home while I was being released from the hospital? No, Linda said firmly. I told Jessica and Marcus yesterday that we weren't signing anything without talking to our own lawyer first. Diane, the so-called estate attorney, smiled professionally. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, I understand this seems abrupt, but your daughter and son-in-law are acting out of concern for your well-being. Given your recent cardiac event, it's prudent to ensure that your assets are protected and that there's a clear succession plan for your business. My name's not Chen, I said coldly. It's Miller. Robert Miller. And I don't know who you are or why you're in my kitchen, but you're going to leave now. Dad, don't be like this, Jessica pleaded. We're trying to help you. You scared us. When Mom called and said you'd collapsed, I thought. I thought we were going to lose you. We just want to make sure you and Mom are taken care of. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She had my brown eyes, Linda's blonde hair, my stubbornness, and Linda's intelligence. We'd given her everything, put her through college, helped with her wedding, been there for her always, and now she was sitting in my kitchen, conspiring to take my business. If you wanted to help, I said quietly, you would have called me. You would have asked what I needed. You wouldn't have tried to steal my business accounts while I was in the hospital. That's not what happened, Marcus interjected. We were just securing the accounts to make sure nothing happened to them. You were incapacitated, Linda was stressed. We were protecting your assets. By changing the password so my wife couldn't access our own money, I stepped closer to the table. By filing legal documents without my knowledge or consent, by discussing how quickly you can sell my property and put us in a home. Dead silence. Marcus's face flushed. You were listening. This is my house, I said. I have every right to hear what's being said in my own kitchen. Diane started packing up her briefcase with practiced efficiency. I think this conversation should continue at another time when everyone's had a chance to calm down. No, Linda said, speaking up for the first time since we'd entered the kitchen. Her voice was steady, stronger than I'd heard it in days. This conversation is going to continue right now. Jessica Marie, what have you done? Jessica couldn't meet her mother's eyes. Mom, it's not how it sounds. Then how is it? Because what I heard was you planning to declare your father incompetent, steal his business, sell the property he's built his whole life on, and put us in a facility against our will. We weren't going to do it against your will, Jessica said weakly. We were going to show you how it's the best option. Coercion, I said. The word you're looking for is coercion. Marcus stood up, and I saw a flash of anger cross his face before he schooled it back to false concern. Look, Robert, I know you're upset. You're tired. You're recovering. You're not thinking clearly. Why don't you go lie down? And we can discuss this later when you're feeling better. Don't you dare, Linda snapped. Don't you dare talk to my husband like he's a confused old man. He's 58 years old. He just got released from the hospital, and he's sharp as he's ever been. You, on the other hand, are a thief. Careful, Linda, Diane said smoothly. Accusations like that can be actionable. So can fraud, I replied. So can forgery, if those documents on my table have my signature on them, and I didn't sign them. So can identity theft if you've been accessing accounts in my name without authorization. Jessica started crying. Dad, please. You don't understand. We're in trouble. Marcus's dealership is closing. We're behind on our mortgage. We have debts. When you had your heart attack, I thought maybe this was a sign. That maybe you should slow down. That maybe we could help you and help ourselves at the same time. And there it was. The truth. My daughter and her husband were drowning financially, and they decided we were their life raft. I felt something crack in my chest, and it wasn't my heart. It was something deeper, something harder to repair. So you decided to steal from us, I said flatly. That was your solution. Not asking for help. Not being honest. Stealing. It's not stealing, Marcus exploded. It's your daughter's inheritance anyway. We're just accessing it now when we actually need it instead of waiting for you to die. The kitchen went very, very quiet. Linda made a small sound, almost like she'd been punched. Jessica whispered, Marcus, shut up. But Marcus was on a roll now, his smooth salesman's facade cracking. You have no idea what kind of pressure we're under. We have credit card debt, medical bills from Jessica's surgery last year, the mortgage. Meanwhile, you two are sitting on a property worth millions and running a shop that barely breaks even. It's stupid. It's wasteful. You're old, Robert. You had a heart attack. This is smart planning. I walked over to the table and looked down at the papers spread across it. Power of attorney documents, business transfer forms, property deeds, Financial statements. They'd done their homework. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment scheme. This was planned. "Get out," I said quietly. That Jessica started. "Get out of my house. Now." "Mr. Miller," Diane tried one more time. "I really think if we all just sat down calmly. Lady, I don't know who you are, but if you're really an attorney, you know that what you're doing here is unethical at best and criminal at worst. I want you and these two out of my house in the next 60 seconds, or I'm calling the police." "You can't call the police," Marcus said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "We haven't done anything wrong." "Haven't you?" I picked up one of the documents. "This power of attorney has my signature on it. But I didn't sign it. That's forgery. These bank account change forms? Filed without my authorization. That's fraud. And according to what I heard, you've been systematically isolating my wife, changing her passwords, taking her phone. That's elder abuse, Marcus. That's a felony." Jessica was crying harder now, but I couldn't comfort her. "Not now. Maybe not ever again." "We were trying to help," she sobbed. "No," Linda said, her voice like iron. "You were trying to help yourselves, and you were willing to destroy us to do it." Marcus grabbed Diane's arm. "Let's go. These people are clearly not thinking rationally." "Oh, we're thinking very rationally," I said. "Diane, I'm assuming you're a licensed attorney in Michigan?" She paused, her briefcase half closed. "Yes. Then you should know that I'm going to be reporting this entire conversation to the State Bar Association, and I'd suggest you get a different kind of lawyer, because you're going to need one." Her face went pale, and she left without another word. Marcus tried to gather up the papers, but I put my hand down on them. "Leave them. That's evidence." "Dad, please," Jessica begged. "Please don't do this. We can fix this. We can make this right." I looked at my daughter, and I saw a stranger. When had she become this person? When had we failed her so badly that she thought this was acceptable? "Jessica, I love you," I said, and my voice cracked. "But right now, I need you to leave. I need to think. I need to figure out what happens next." "What does that mean?" she asked, fear replacing tears. "It means I'm going to talk to my own lawyer. It means I'm going to document everything that happened here. It means there are going to be consequences for what you've done. I don't know what those consequences are yet, but there will be consequences." "You can't do this to your own daughter," Marcus said desperately. "No," Linda replied before I could. "She did this to herself. Now, get out." They left. Finally they left. Jessica was still crying. Marcus was still arguing, but they left. When the door closed behind them, I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, suddenly exhausted. My chest ached. My head pounded. My heart, both literally and figuratively, felt like it might give out. Linda sat down next to me and took my hand. We didn't say anything for a long moment. We just sat there, holding hands in our kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of our daughter's betrayal. "What do we do?" Linda finally whispered. "We fight," I said. "We protect what we've built, and we make sure this never happens again." She nodded. "I already called our lawyer while you were being discharged. Margaret's coming over tomorrow morning." I looked at my wife with renewed admiration. "You knew? I've known something was wrong for 3 days. I just didn't want to believe it. But when they took my phone yesterday, I borrowed a nurse's phone and called Margaret from the hospital." "What did she say?" "She said to document everything. So I started writing it all down, times, dates, conversations, and Robert. She pulled out her own phone. I've been recording them. Every conversation since Tuesday, including the one just now." I stared at her. My practical, brilliant wife had been 3 steps ahead this whole time. "How did you manage that without your phone?" "I borrowed Tom's old phone from your shop, the one he was going to recycle. I've been carrying it in my purse, recording everything just in case." She pulled up the recording app, and I saw hours of audio files. "It's all here. Everything they said, everything they planned." I pulled her into my arms and held her tight. "I love you. I love you too. And Robert, we're going to win this. We're going to save the shop, and we're going to make sure they can never do this again." She was right. We would fight. We would win. But first, I needed to know exactly how much damage had already been done. The next morning, Margaret Holloway, our attorney for the past 15 years, arrived at our house at 8 o'clock sharp. She was a woman in her early 60s, sharp-eyed and sharp-witted, who'd handled everything from our business incorporation to our wills. She listened to our story, listened to Linda's recordings, and examined the documents still spread across our kitchen table. When we finished, she sat back and steepled her fingers. "This is bad, but it's also prosecutable. They've committed multiple felonies here. Forgery, fraud, identity theft, and depending on how far this goes, elder financial abuse." "Elder abuse?" I repeated. "I'm 58, Margaret, not 98. Doesn't matter. In Michigan, financial exploitation of vulnerable adults over 55 qualifies. And you were vulnerable when they started this. You were in the hospital, incapacitated. They took advantage of that. That's textbook abuse." Linda gripped my hand tighter. "What do we do?" "First, we go to the police. We file a report. We turn over all of this evidence." She gestured to the documents and Linda's phone. "Second, we go to the bank first thing Monday morning and straighten out the account access. You'll need to prove identity, show the forged signatures, and get everything put back in your names only. Third, we file for an emergency restraining order to keep them away from you and the business." "A restraining order," I said slowly. "Against our own daughter." "Yes," Margaret said firmly. "Because if they've gotten this far already, they won't stop. They're desperate, Robert. Desperate people do desperate things. We need to protect you and Linda immediately." "What about the business?" Linda asked. "Can they still sell it somehow?" "Not without both your signatures. Properly witnessed and notarized. The documents they have are fraudulent. Once we expose that, any transaction based on them is void. But we need to move fast. If they've already approached buyers, if they've started paperwork with the county." She trailed off meaningfully. "How fast?" I asked. "Today. Now. We go to the police station right now, we file the report, and I start the paperwork for the restraining order. Then Monday morning, first thing, we hit the bank and the county recorder's office." I looked at Linda. She nodded. "Let's do it," I said. The police station was surreal. Sitting in an interview room, telling a detective about how my daughter tried to steal my business, listening to Linda's recordings being played back to us, signing statement after statement. The detective, a woman named Sarah Chen, who couldn't have been much older than Jessica, listened with growing concern. "This is a solid case," she said when we finished. "We've seen an uptick in family financial exploitation cases, especially targeting people after medical emergencies. Your daughter and son-in-law fit the pattern perfectly. Financial desperation, access to the victims, and opportunity during a vulnerable time." "What happens next?" Linda asked. "We open an investigation. We'll need to verify the forgeries, which means getting handwriting analysis done on the signatures. We'll need to interview the attorney who was present. We'll need to subpoena bank records and county filings. This will take time. But with the recordings you have, with the physical evidence of the documents, you've done most of our work for us." "How much time?" I asked. "A few weeks, maybe a month before we can make arrests. We need to build an airtight case. But in the meantime, you should definitely get that restraining order. And Mr. Miller, change all your locks. All of them. Your house, your shop, everything. If they had access before, they might have made copies of keys." That thought hadn't even occurred to me. The idea that my own daughter might break into my house, into my shop. "We'll do that today," Linda said. Detective Chen handed us her card. "Call me if they try to contact you. If anything else happens. If you remember anything else. And Mr. Miller, I'm sorry this happened to you. No parent should have to go through this." We spent the rest of Saturday changing locks. Tom, my assistant manager, came over to help. He'd been running the shop while I was in the hospital, and when I told him what had happened, his face went dark with anger. "Jessica did that? You're Jessica?" "Yeah," I said, working a screwdriver on the shop's back door. "My Jessica." "Boss, I'm sorry. I don't even have words." "Me neither, Tom." He helped me change the locks, and then he said something that stuck with me. "You know, you could retire, sell the shop legitimately, to someone who'd run it right. Take the money, move somewhere warm, live the rest of your life in peace." I paused, considering. "You think I should?" I think you shouldn't let them win, he said. This shop is yours. You built it. Don't let them take it from you, but also don't let them poison it for you. If you want to sell someday, that should be your choice, your terms, not because they scared you into it. He was right. This was my shop, my choice. On Monday morning, Linda and I were at the bank before they opened. We had Margaret with us, all the documentation, the police report, everything. The bank manager was horrified when she saw the forged signatures and the unauthorized account changes. This should never have been possible, she kept saying. We have protocols. We have verification requirements. Apparently those protocols weren't good enough, Margaret said coolly. My clients want their accounts restored immediately, with full access, and they want a detailed accounting of any transactions that occurred while they were locked out. It took 3 hours, but we got it done. Full access restored. The forged power of attorney flagged in the system as fraudulent. Security questions changed. Two-factor authentication added. When we left, Linda had her financial access back. That's one victory, she said as we walked to the car. One of many, I replied. The county recorder's office was next. The good news was that Jessica and Marcus hadn't yet filed anything with the county to transfer the property. The bad news was that they'd tried. There was a filed application, but it had been flagged for review because the signatures didn't match the ones on file from previous documents. The system worked, the clerk told us. We caught the discrepancy, the application was denied, and we sent a notice to the address on file. When was this? Margaret asked. Last Thursday, the day after Mr. Miller was admitted to the hospital. They hadn't wasted any time. The moment I was vulnerable, they'd moved. We need to flag this account, Margaret said. No changes can be made without both Robert and Linda Miller appearing in person with photo identification and verified signatures. We can do that, the clerk said. I'll make a note in the file right now. By Monday afternoon, we'd secured everything. The business was safe. The property was safe. Our financial accounts were safe. Jessica and Marcus couldn't touch any of it. The restraining order hearing was on Wednesday. Jessica and Marcus were both there, with their own lawyer now. Jessica looked terrible. Her eyes were red from crying, her face pale and drawn. Marcus looked angry. The judge reviewed the evidence, the recordings, the forged documents, the testimony from the bank, and the police report. When he spoke, his voice was grave. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of attempted elder financial exploitation I've seen in my courtroom. Miss Miller, Mr. Patterson, you should be ashamed of yourselves. These are your parents. The people who raised you, provided for you, loved you, and you repaid that love by trying to steal everything they've worked for their entire lives. Your Honor, if I may, their lawyer began, but the judge held up his hand. You may not. The evidence is overwhelming. The recordings alone are damning. I'm granting the restraining order. Miss Miller, Mr. Patterson, you are to have no contact with Robert or Linda Miller for a minimum of 2 years. You are not to come within 500 feet of their home or place of business. You are not to contact them by phone, email, text, or through any third party. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. Do you understand? Jessica was crying again. Dad, please, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I looked at her, and I felt nothing. Not anger anymore. Not sadness. Just emptiness. Do you understand? The judge repeated sharply. Yes, Your Honor, Jessica whispered. Yes, Your Honor, Marcus said through gritted teeth. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm referring this case to the prosecutor's office for criminal investigation. What you did wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. And if the DA decides to press charges, you'll be facing serious felony counts. After the hearing, Margaret walked us to our car. That went as well as could be expected. What happens now? Linda asked. Now you go home. You live your lives. You run your business. And if the DA files charges, we cooperate fully. But Robert, Linda, this is over. You won. Your assets are protected. They can't hurt you anymore. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like losing everything. 3 weeks later, Detective Chen called. The prosecutor is filing charges. Multiple counts of forgery, fraud, identity theft, and elder financial abuse. Arrest warrants will be issued tomorrow. Jail time, I asked. Potentially, If they're convicted on all counts, they could each face up to 10 years. More likely, they'll get a plea deal. Probation, restitution, community service, felony records. But Robert? They'll be convicted felons. That follows them for life. My daughter, a convicted felon. We didn't want this, Linda said that night as we lay in bed. We just wanted them to stop. I know. Do you think we should drop the charges? I thought about that. About mercy, about family, about love, about everything I'd taught Jessica when she was growing up. About right and wrong, about consequences, about taking responsibility for your actions. No, I said finally. If we drop the charges, they'll never learn. They'll think they can do this again to someone else, maybe to us again later. They need to face consequences. Real consequences. Even if it means she goes to jail? Even then. Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "When did we become people who send their own daughter to jail? When she became a person who tried to steal from us." The trial happened 6 months later. Jessica and Marcus both took plea deals. 18 months probation, 5,000 hours of community service each, full restitution of all legal fees we'd incurred, and permanent felony records. No jail time, but their lives were irrevocably changed. Jessica wrote me a letter. I didn't read it for a month. When I finally did, late one night in my shop, while I was working on rebuilding an engine, her words were predictable. Apologies, regret, explanations about the pressure they'd been under, the debts, the desperation, claims that they never meant to really hurt us, that they just panicked. But nowhere in the letter did she say the one thing I needed to hear, that she understood why what she did was fundamentally, inexcusably wrong. Not wrong because they got caught. Wrong because you don't do that to people you love. Wrong because stealing is stealing, no matter how you justify it. I didn't respond to the letter. Linda and I are doing okay now. It's been a year since my heart attack warning. I've made the lifestyle changes. Lost 20 pounds. Changed my diet. Exercise regularly. The shop is doing well. Tom is now my official partner, and we're training a new mechanic who shows real promise. We don't talk about Jessica much. Sometimes I see Linda looking at old photos, touching the frame around Jessica's college graduation picture. Sometimes I find myself starting to call her when something good happens, before I remember that I can't. The restraining order expires in another year. I don't know what happens then. I don't know if Jessica and Marcus will try to contact us. I don't know if I want them to. Tom asked me again last month if I'd thought about retiring. "You're 59 now, boss. You could sell the shop, travel, enjoy life." "Maybe," I said. "Someday. But not yet. Because this shop isn't just a business. It's proof that I built something real, something valuable, something worth fighting for. Jessica and Marcus wanted to tear it down and sell the pieces. But I didn't let them. Linda and I protected what was ours. That matters. Last week, Linda and I went to see Margaret about updating our will. Everything goes to charity now. College funds for underprivileged kids, programs for elder abuse prevention. Nothing for Jessica. You know, Margaret said carefully, "You could change your mind later. Wills aren't set in stone." "I know," I said. "But right now, this is what feels right." Linda nodded in agreement. Because the truth is, I still love my daughter. I probably always will. But love doesn't mean you let people destroy you. Love doesn't mean there aren't consequences. Love doesn't mean you sacrifice everything you've built because someone else made bad choices. I learned that the hard way, standing in my kitchen a year ago, listening to my only child plot to steal my life's work. I learned that being a good father doesn't mean being a doormat. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no and mean it. Would I do it all again if I could go back? The police reports, the restraining orders, the criminal charges. Yes, because what they did was wrong, and pretending it wasn't wouldn't have helped anyone. Not me, not Linda, and not Jessica. Sometimes I wonder if she understands that yet. Sometimes I wonder if she ever will. But mostly, I just try to move forward. I go to work at my shop. I come home to Linda. We have dinner together, watch TV, talk about our days. We're rebuilding our lives, creating new routines, finding new joy in simple things. The heart attack warning scared me. But Jessica's betrayal changed me. It taught me that strength isn't just physical. It's knowing your worth, protecting your boundaries, and refusing to be a victim even when the people hurting you are the ones you love most. I'm 59 years old. I own a small automotive repair shop in suburban Michigan. My hands are still calloused from honest work. My back is still straight. And I'm still standing, still fighting, still building. That's enough. That has to be enough. Because some battles you win by not losing yourself in the fight. And that's exactly what Linda and I did. We didn't lose ourselves. We didn't become bitter or vengeful. We just protected what was ours and moved forward. The shop opens at 7 tomorrow morning. I'll be there like I have been for 40 years. Tom will arrive at 7:15. We'll drink coffee, joke about the Tigers game, and work on cars. It's a simple life, an honest life, a life I built with my own 2 hands. And nobody, not even my daughter, can take that away from me.